Over the past 2 months of work here amidst you good people of the Fountain Street Church, I continually find myself returning back to a few core questions as I try to gather information in my great quest to make meaning out of this place and help you do the same. And there are, of course, a few things that establish this place as a little bit of a contextual conundrum. The first is, as I mentioned this, I think, in my very first sermon with you, is the somewhat unique habit from pulpit to pew, this cultural habit of Fountain Street Church in talking about Fountain Street Church. Great deal. And this is now the gravitational orbit in which I find myself trapped. So here I am. Behold the object. Another preacher preaching about Fountain Street Church. Now, on one hand, this is kind of the holdout of a homiletical coward. But it's the same way that many poets write poems about writing poetry, and many filmmakers seem obsessed these days with making movies about making movies. And I suppose chefs write cookbooks, and artists make self-portraits, and photographers take pictures in a mirror. I don't know what they do. But I have come to the conclusion that this is worthwhile. There's something worth examining in the peculiarness of this place. And the reflective quality to a lot of the preaching and conversation that takes place here is a good thing. And I may have been too ignorant in my first sermon to understand it. I'm not ready to issue a retraction yet, but I want to say something about this. I'm not so sure that I think that when Fountain Street Church turns its gaze inward to talk about Fountain Street Church, I think what's happening perhaps isn't a desire to critique or escape from the world out there, or to congratulate or make believe or play at being a church or something, but it's because this place is a laboratory. In its infancy, this church, for the first 50 years, it was a place where a particular group of Christians sought refuge from the restriction of larger denominations that existed outside of this community, and they wanted the freedom to vote their conscience, and so they called themselves Baptists. And then when even this became too restrictive after a few generations, and they chose to become, in fact, non-denominational in word and deed, and it became a fully ecumenical place to explore the life and teachings and the way of Jesus, rather than just simply worshiping Jesus as another deity. And now, in about the last 2 decades, even this has become too narrow, and today the church has become more of an interreligious home for exploring global expressions of faith and humanism and ethics and politics. And here you are, a people searching in the interim for new answers to old questions, and a few old answers to new questions, I hope. So it's natural that you would have a lot to say about this place. Okay. In other settings, in other churches, you could simply say, well, here is our statement of faith. Here is our Bible. We use this one. Here's our catechism. Read it for yourself. But you can't say that here. You have to begin with dialogue and conversation. So I think that what is happening is perhaps rather more like what happens when a person lives in one place for a long time, and then they go on an extended vacation someplace else, and at some point in the vacation, they find themselves deeply and passionately engaged in conversation with a stranger about what? About the place they're taking a vacation from. Why do we do this? I didn't fly all the way from Grand Rapids, Michigan to some tropical paradise to spend a whole evening on a beach yammering on about Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I do it anyway. And so likewise, we are in a season of interim here, or at some distance from the cultural nexus of our spiritual identity. Maybe it's perfectly normal to want to talk about our church, even when it's Sunday morning and we're sitting in the damn place. Okay. I chose for the first text today, or for the text, a passage from Ursula K. Le Guin's groundbreaking work of fiction from 1974, The Dispossessed, an Ambiguous Utopia. The novel is one of the very few books to have won all 3 major science fiction awards, the Nebula, the Locus, and the Hugo Award, all in the same year. The protagonist of the book is a physicist. He's a man named Shevik, and he's brilliant, but he's a conflicted scientist who has to travel between different and separate societies. One society, his home of origin, is based around anarcho-syndicalist principles. And the other, the country that he travels to visit, embraces a capitalist economy and a patriarchal culture. So you may see why I find this book quite captivating. To hell with being coy. I embrace and practice a lot of anarcho-syndicalist principles, and I happen to live in a capitalist economy and a patriarchal culture. So the damn book was basically written for me. Probably a lot of you too, but the reason that the book became instantly famous and endlessly studied was because Le Guin, the author, refused to misrepresent either of these fictional countries or cultures. There's no clear-cut good guys or bad guys in the story, and the two nations have different but very real challenges. And the protagonist, this traveling scientist, he's torn between them. He's longing for the home that he somehow also despises, while simultaneously getting himself in trouble for having a little bit too much to drink and then railing against the culture and values of his new hosts while eating at their table. It's about trying and struggling to find home, even when you know where home ought to be. It's a good book. And the other reading that we just heard, Psalm 25, is similar. The author of the psalm is caught in ambiguity. They begin with the great hope of every immigrant people, a hope for home in God, despite finding themselves lost in a foreign land. I lift up my soul to the righteous one. Elechai Adonai, nafshi esa. The word there, my soul, nafshi. It's literally, I lift up my whole self. Everything that I am, I lift up. I physically lift it up. My person. You are where I put my trust. Elohai becha. Vitachti. Vitachti is the word for trust. In Hebrew, it's greater than trust. It's security. In you, I place my security, my safety. The psalmist knows where security can be found, and they know where home is, and yet the way home is long and complicated, and people get lost. And so they beseech, remember your maternal love, O womb of life. She guides the humble in what is just. She teaches the humble her way. It's a poem about knowing where home is and then trying to find your way back to it. And the problem, of course, is that you can never really go home again, right? We all know our Heraclitus. No man can step in the same river twice. Tom Wolfe wrote a whole damn book about it. It's called You Can't Go Home Again. Thanks, Tom. Home's changed, right? Home has changed. And in any case, we're probably soaking in nostalgia. We're probably wrong about where home is and what home was really like in the first place. Le Guin's protagonist deals with this in The Dispossessed. It says, you can go home again, in fact, so long as you understand that home is a place where you've never been. I think that what much of people want from this place, from the Fountain Street Church, is a sense of home as they hold it in their hearts and memories. And I don't know if I can give you that. But I know what it feels like to want it. I think any of us do. But most especially, those of us who have been told somewhere, some other place in our lives by other people who want to hurt us, that we have no home here. Have you ever been told that you are not welcome in your home? Have you ever been told that you have no home where you are? I think for many queer people, especially for queer people of faith, the world of any church is a potentially very hostile place. For outsiders, for anarchists, for trans people in Grand Rapids, the people of liminal spaces, for questioners and seekers, for anyone that has ever dared to step outside the orthodoxy of their so-called home culture, home can become, in the words of the poet Warson Shire, home is the mouth of a shark. And under capitalism, under this system that says that you yourself are a commodity and your value is tied directly to your ability to produce surplus value for your boss, I think maybe home is a place where you can go away from that to discover what you're actually worth. Home is where you discover what you're really worth. Because it seems like everywhere else, especially in America, you're worth exactly as much money as you can bring to the table. But what are people really worth here at Fountain Street Church? We heard the cry of the psalmist, seeking safety, seeking the womb of life. That's the same cry that calls out today from every corner of this city. Can people find a home here? Are they safe here? And what are they worth here? Is it how much money they have, or how much they can do? Or is it something else? I think something holy. So I know that for many, many churches in America, they are struggling financially. When they look out into the community, these churches, they see people looking for a home, and I'm not saying what I'm about to say because I'm naive or stupid or economically illiterate. A lot of churches look out into their community, the fellow travelers, and they see potential revenue streams. And they see potential tenants, renters. I mean, what is a renter if it's not someone looking for a home? People who could, or they think maybe should, pay some money in order to come through the doors. In America, this way of thinking about people is natural. It is in the air and the water we breathe. It's because you buy your way into everything else. You buy your way into having enough to eat. You buy your way into a good education. You buy your way into a reliable vehicle and transportation. Hell, they even make us buy our way into being healthy in this country. They make us buy our way into clean water. So why shouldn't they make us buy our way home or buy our way through the doors of a church? Now, this is confused thinking for churches. First of all, because it begs the question, who actually owns the physical building? And I do not have enough time to answer that for you today. But that's kind of the wrong question in any case, because it's confused thinking, because it assumes that the most valuable thing a stranger could bring through the doors of a church is a rent check. Please listen to me. And I'm not just saying this for us. This is a problem in every single community of faith in America. Think very, very carefully before you decide to rent out your house. Because your home doesn't need more tenants, and your city doesn't need another landlord. The economist Samuel Bowles has probably written more about this than any other current professor of economics, and I strongly encourage you to read his most recent work, The Moral Economy: Why Good Incentives Are No Substitute for Good Citizens. He will lay out the math for you, and maybe we can do a book study if this is something that fires you up. Bowles' work demonstrates that the economic difference between asking people to pay rent versus asking people to participate in community is pretty vast. And I'll give you a hint. People are often willing to invest much more of their own money in the latter. So I'm going to be sharing stories with you in these coming months about why, financially speaking, radical hospitality beats rent-seeking up, down, and sideways for the financial benefit of the church. But let us just say this. If when you choose to make your home into a place that seeks rent instead of hope, that sees human beings as potential tenants instead of guests, you're saying a couple of things about your home and the people that dwell there. When churches decide to take their building and their home and charge rent for it, first of all, they're signing up all of their current members to be volunteer landlords. I don't know very many people who enjoy being a landlord. Maybe a couple. It's hard. It's very hard work being a landlord. But I know exactly 0 people who enjoy being volunteer landlords as a hobby in their free time. So then you think, well, then we can just make the staff do it. Now, maybe I can only speak for the clergy, but I don't know any clergy of any religion who went to college for 7 years and earned postgraduate degrees in order to become property managers or landlords. The really hard and terrible truth is that when you choose to make your home into rental property, you're saying to your guests, when they put their cash on the table, that rent check right there is the extent of our relationship. And then they will say the exact same thing to you. We're seeing the results of this play out in local economies right here, in tourist communities on the lakeshore with the Airbnbs and the Verbo properties and this stuff. They're short-term rentals. The people who come from far away and then pay their money and take their ride, they aren't there to invest in the community. And maybe that's okay and maybe it's not, but it's the truth. And as for a tenant in a short-term rental, when that light bulb burns out or the toilet paper runs out, when the refrigerator quits or the windows won't shut, do they call up the landlord and they say, hey, Frank, I noticed there's a few issues in this house that you own where I stay, so I went ahead and fixed that stuff for you? No. They say, according to the terms of our agreement, you have 24 hours to come and fix this. The limits of the relationship are right there, and they're spelled out in legal language on the paper. A tenant renting a room in a hotel makes a mess. And then they say, oh, well, that's what the housekeeping staff is for. They spill their food. They trash the place. Well, they paid their money. It's somebody else's problem now. But when you are a guest in somebody else's home and you spill your cup of coffee on the kitchen floor, do you turn to your host and say, well, it's a good thing you're here. I spilled my coffee. Could you clean that up for me? No, that's what an insane person would say. You say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me grab a towel. So where do you keep your mop? Do you have a mop? I'm going to clean this up. Church, do not permit your home to become a place of tenants and landlords. Do not reduce the economics of your home to cash value transactions. If you do this, you will sell your inheritance and you will be left a stranger in your home. Don't hang a sign that says room for rent. Instead, put a candle in the window for the people who are looking for their way back home. Same as you are. Right? Same as you are. Most of you weren't born into Fountain Street Church. I know some of you were. Most of you, myself included, most of you were looking for a home when you found this place. You didn't buy a ticket at the door. In fact, if you gave anything at all, you gave much more than that. I know how much you give. I see it. I see how much you contribute financially and from your time, out of your deep love for this very special place. I see it. It is absolutely beautiful to me. You invest in this place, in this home. You invest so much more than the cost of a ticket for admission. Let us extend that same opportunity to the rest of this city. Say, come here. Come inside, come into this place, not because we think that we can get you to pay 40% of the market rate per square foot. Come inside, come here because you're looking for your way home just like we are. Come here, not because we think that we're strapped for cash and we can squeeze a little out of you and your friends. No. Come here because you and your friends are probably also our friends. Come here and be our guest because we think that your values might align with our values. We think that we might enjoy your presence and participating in your dances and singing your songs, attending your meditation circles and your recovery groups and your grief sessions. And come here not because you can pay us rent. Come here because we need you and we love you. And we see that you are worth infinitely more than the contents of your wallet. And then if you wish, you can join your money to ours together, not as tenants or landlords or outsiders and insiders, but as a common community where we invest our money together in the work of beauty and justice. Come here because we think that you, just as we did, might find a home here, and you may even find a church here. And you may find that instead of paying rent, but rather investing sacrificially with your resources, your money and your time, your sweat and your tears into the walls of the place, by doing it, you can join us in building a home for the next people who will be coming after us, for generations of people yet to be born. Every single church that I have served as a professional member of the clergy has grown in membership. And every church has done so, has chosen to stop charging rent for their facilities. And instead, intentionally seek out people and groups that share their values and say, we value your humanity and presence here more than we value your money. And every single one of those churches has grown in attendance, membership, participation, and yes, in financial giving. Every single one. I have never once in my professional career left a church smaller or poorer than I found it. This will not be the case with this one. And while I get interviewed most regularly by the denominations and powers and principalities about whatever magical lightning in a bottle that grows local churches, the flat truth of the matter is that any material success I've had in my work boils down to one single word: hospitality. Hospitality. I wish it was sexier than that. and listen, and not everyone is going to want our hospitality. Some of them reject our values. Okay, this isn't their home. That's okay. And some of them, they've got enough money to just go down the street to any of the fine hotels and performance halls and conference centers here and just simply buy as much hospitality as they want. We will never be able to compete with those places, nor should we, because we didn't come here to this place to learn how to be better landlords. We didn't come here to learn how to monetize our love for strangers and then practice a purely performative kind of hospitality. Not everyone is going to want our hospitality, and not everyone is going to need our hospitality, and the hard work of your church staff and leadership is going to be sorting this stuff out, and they're working on it. We're all working on it. But the people who do want our hospitality and generosity, those people are right here in Grand Rapids. And those are the people that are going to make up the next 2,000 pledging members of the Fountain Street Church. They're here in our city right now, and they're looking for their home. And they're lifting up their souls because they know what home feels like. They're looking for it. They may come through the doors, and we might not be ready for them yet, and that's okay. But I know for a fact that there is a hell of a lot of people out there looking for us. Frankly, I've had at least 30 people in this city tell me that they've always considered themselves unofficial Fountain Streeters. Unofficial Fountain Streeters. I have been doing this for a while. I have never in my life had somebody approach me and tell me that they consider themselves unofficial Lutherans. I have never met an unofficial Episcopalian. I don't know. Maybe they're out there. In a city where people are so hungry for home that they'll approach me and introduce themselves to me as unofficial members of this place, that tells me that people are ready for this place. They're ready to join. And extending a kindness, a welcome to them, an open hand rather than a rental contract, that's how you build a church, people. And I promise you that they will give. They will give, not not just through sharing their culture and music and volunteership and all the good things that we need. I promise you that they will give financially to support this place in far greater abundance than you would have ever hoped to receive through rent-seeking and tenant agreements. I'll say more about that next week. So let's just close this today with a word and a blessing of gratitude, because we are here. A gratitude we can hold in our hearts. Here's our gratitude. Who opened the door of this place to you for the first time? Who got you here, Fountain Street Church? It may have been your parents, your elders. It may have been your spouse. That's okay. Hold gratitude for that person now in your mind, in your heart. It may have simply been the architects and the dreamers who built this place a century ago. You maybe opened the doors yourself, but that's okay. Those dreamers and architects, that's why they built it. It was to tell you that you're welcome here and you can find home here. Hold gratitude for them. Hold gratitude for them. It may have been the first person in this place to offer you a handshake of friendship or a friendly smile. Hold gratitude. In my heart right now, I am holding gratitude for the very first person of this church who responded to me in that interim search, to Jack Petit, who was the chair of that committee, and to Spalding Wall, who was the first person here to take me out for a cup of coffee, to welcome me. Hold that gratitude for that person who said through word or deed or presence, you may find a home here at Fountain Street Church. Gratitude. And then holding that in our hearts, we can turn our vision out to the city and to all who dwell therein and say, here is our home, the place we love, the place we can't seem to stop talking about. Here's our home. It is not for everyone, but it might be for you. And you are welcome here. You're welcome here with your whole self. You're welcome not simply to receive and not simply to take, but to join us in this tremendous effort of building this home in the city, a people's cathedral, a home for all who have no other. You're welcome to make of this place your home, and we'll show you home, and we'll show you how, and then we'll show you where we keep the dish towels and the extra toilet paper and the mops and the brooms and all that stuff, and we'll teach you how to help take care of your new home, because you're home now. You're home now. You found your way. You found your way home. Welcome home. Welcome home. Amen.